You know, being a self-employed woodworker and YouTuber has its perks. No alarm clocks, no strict schedule, just me, my tools and my imagination. At least that is what I like to tell myself. But then I woke up one Thursday, and this was not just any Thursday, this was August the 29th, and my wife and I had somehow promised to help our daughter with some IKEA furniture on Saturday. That's in 2 days. Yeah, I know there is a lot to unpack there. If you follow my channel, you have probably seen me building an entire reclaimed cabin with my daughter Julia. But nope, that is not about her. We got another daughter who's studying in a whole different part of Denmark. She and her boyfriend just moved into a new apartment. And surprise, it's small. It's like neat custom furniture small, or IKEA small, if you like. So my daughter sketched out some ideas for the space, and sure enough, she found some IKEA options for it also. So here we were, planning to drive across the country for IKEA. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't this guy build a whole cabin with one daughter, and now he's just mounting flat-pack furniture with the other? What? Didn't he see the Swedish Maker's video about paying a woodworker instead?
I'm sorry, IKEA.
I mean, if a Swedish guy dumps IKEA, shouldn't a Danish guy know better than that? Where's the woodworker in all of this? Somebody go wake him up. But then I looked closer at my daughter's notebook drawings, and that's when I saw it. Actual design drawings. She was leaving me hints like breadcrumbs. Clever girl. She knows how much I dislike IKEA. This idea of turning one big desk into two smaller desks is like opening a door to endless possibilities. No legs, just the tabletop cascading down to the floor like a waterfall. You could stand one of them up and boom, you would have a standing desk. Or push them together for a long desk, a wide desk, or even a corner desk. Heck, you could slap one over your bed and call it a bed desk. The options are endless, and I'm already hooked. The design really simple. Some people call this a U-desk, and sure, some folks build these things out of thick, fancy oak. But I have got 2 days to pull this off and avoid the dreaded IKEA trip. Milling pallet wood would take like a week. I don't have a lot of fancy oak laying around, and let's be real, I'd do just about anything to skip IKEA. So here I am at 9:17 on a Thursday morning, staring at these plans and realizing it is really just 3 pieces of wood. I've screwed wood together before, so how hard can that be? So I figured this was a good time to test my joinery skills. I mean, sure, I could just drive screws in from the top, but let's be honest, that wouldn't look great on a desk. And it definitely wouldn't hold up to any serious side pressure. And there are always some pocket holes to hide the screws inside. And also dominoes, which are super strong for joining wood. But the problem is there isn't much meat in a 21mm plywood sheet for the domino to grip in. Then I remembered this little trick that makes me look like a way better woodworker than I actually am. Betting all my luck on that trick, I grabbed some 21mm plywood sheets and decided to cut them into 2 equal desktops and 4 legs. And the first order of business, cut off that ugly factory edge, and then mill the pieces down to 60 centimeters wide, just like the drawing said. I used my table saw for this part because, let's face it, nothing makes you feel more like a pro than slicing wood on a table saw. But time was flying, so I switched to the track saw to get the pieces cut down to length. The plan, well, the original plan, was to finish both desks on day 1, tackle the other mystery item from the drawings on day 2, and then hit the road on day 3. Simple, right? But here I am a few hours into the first day, and all I have managed to do is to cut 6 pieces of wood to size. And oh, film it, of course. So yeah, I think it is time to skip ahead and dive straight into the joinery. So here is my first tip, and don't worry, there is another one coming too, for anyone who wants to look like a much better woodworker than they actually are, like me. Cheat with fancy joinery. I got myself a Dovetail jig, and if you can turn on a router, you can make professional looking joinery. This was my first time using it, so I did a little test on 2 scraps of plywood, and guess what? It actually worked. No glue, and the joint was still really strong. Now, under serious time pressure, I dived right in and routed the joinery on one side of one of the desks. And I may have gotten a bit too aggressive with the router, or maybe I went in the wrong direction because there was quite some tear out everywhere. By this point, it was already after 1 o'clock and I have been in the shop for 4 hours. I decided to take a lunch break. Not because I was really hungry, but because I needed to rethink my entire existence as a woodworker. Refueled with coffee, I got back to the shop and gave it another shot. This time I took it slow, carefully removing material from the outside before routing the dovetails. And what do you know? Almost no tear out. I figured it was a smart move to glue up the first table before jumping into the joinery on the second one. The clock is ticking and I have only got about 4 of those red corner clamps, the ones that I regret buying on Temu. So I need to get that glue drying while I work on routing the dovetails for table number 2. And time is not on my side. But hey, we got clamps, we got glue, and I still have a little bit of hope left somewhere. These dovetails are a really tight fit, but with a little light hammer action, this thing is rock solid. To make sure the joint dries at a perfect 90-degree angle, I clamped up the corners with my trusty Woodpecker Reddish clamps. That's definitely not woodpeckers. Then it is straight back to the dovetails on the second table. I've got to say, just looking at the joinery makes me feel like a far better woodworker than I actually am. And remember, I promised you another tip to look like a pro. Don't worry, it is coming soon. I just need to finish this second table first. This plywood is surprisingly strong and doesn't flex much, but I added a stretcher underneath the table to beef up the structure a little bit more. After cutting it to the exact length, I drilled some pocket holes and then glued and screwed it to the underside. Meanwhile, I'm also working on table number 2, moving my clamping contraptions over as the clock ticks away. It is already 16:48, that's almost 10 to 5, on day 1, and I'm starting to realize the third table might not happen. But hey, optimism, right? I'm cutting another stretcher for table 2 and wait, who unplugged the vac from the miter saw? While mounting the second stretcher, I had a light bulb moment. Maybe I should trim some material off the middle to avoid some knee banging under the table. So I grabbed this giant flush trim bit for my router and made a test cut. So the test cut went fine, but when I started cutting away on the stretcher, it didn't exactly go as planned. Let's just say the jigsaw had to come to the rescue. And it's a good thing that I have a sander because I need to do a little work on it. And it's also a good thing that this will be hidden under the table. By the time I started sanding, it was already 8 p.m. and I had other things to take care of too. I really hope to get both tables sanded and finished today, but it looks like I'll have to push some of that today too. And speaking of day 2, I had some other things to handle in the morning. You know, running a family and YouTube channel takes time. So when I finally made it to the workshop, it was already 11:15. I should fire myself. I decided to take the finishing operation outside, and here is the second tip for looking like a way better woodworker than you actually are. It is all about the sandpaper and the finish. You can use the best wood in the world, but if you don't spend time on the finish, it will look amateurish, if that's a word. Now, my wood here isn't exactly oak or walnut, it is birch plywood. And plywood isn't exactly known for its fine furniture status, but hey, since I'm now a designer working with plywood, I have a vision for this finish. And hopefully it doesn't turn out looking like a preschool art project. So I started sanding with 40 grit, moved up to 80 grit and then 120, and I finished it off with a round of 150 grit before cleaning the wood with wood cleaner. And here's the thing, my daughter is not a fan of white or yellowish wood, so I had no choice but to find either some paint or a wood oil with a bit of color. I had some clear wood oil from Rubio Monocoat, plus some free samples with different brown tones. But instead of wasting time running a bunch of tests and ordering some cans, I just crossed my fingers, mixed some color samples in the pure oil, slapped on the sample and hoped for the best. And with a bit of luck, this finish is going to look great and repel anything. Water, coffee spills, life regrets, anything. So the second tip for looking like a pro woodworker, spend time on the finish. I grabbed a sponge, spread the oil, let it soak in for a bit, and then I wiped it off with another sponge. Or an old Jesper Makes t-shirt, you know, whatever is handy. Normally, Rubio Monocoat only needs one coat, but this wood was thirsty. So I added another application of oil, and then I spent some time with a spongy thing on my sander, massaging the oil into the wood and polishing the surface smooth. And honestly, the color came out way better than I expected. Like, way better. It really brought out the best in the birch plywood. You'd never guess it's plywood unless you look at the edges. And I'm actually pretty proud of how I showcased the plywood with the joinery. Plywood pride, people. But hey, that is just what I think. What really matters is what my daughter and her boyfriend think. And what you think. So let me know in the comments right below that little subscribe button. we hit the road for our cross-country adventure. Eventually, we pull up to my daughter's cozy little apartment and reveal that we may not need to go to IKEA, but I guess we'll see about that. We set them up, and I've got to admit, the color turned out exactly how I imagined. It is rich, it is warm, and it is totally coffee-like. And the best part is they really love it. Plus, the surface treatment is already working, repelling water like a pro, even though it's been like less than 24 hours since I slapped this on. As we stand there admiring the tables, I realize that I never did get around to making that third mystery table. So I guess it is right back to the shop when I get home, or maybe a trip to IKEA anyway.